Greetings, adventurer, and welcome to the Halls of Teknor. In this video, we're going to show you how to play this game and get started with your own small campaign. Now, in Halls of Teknor, you take control of two cooperating delvers, which are looking for the tomb of the fabled cyber god Teknor, which, according to legend, is supposedly located somewhere in this maze of interconnected dungeon halls. We are gonna start our video at the start of the quest. So our heroes just came in via this doorway. When you start at a doorway, you have to place your heroes adjacent to this place. And that means that you can place it horizontally or vertically, but also diagonally. Now, there's a lot of text here. That's lore text. You can read that in your own session. Before we can explore this room, we first have to clear it. And these rooms are usually filled with dangerous robots. How do we know? Well, there's a 1 and there's a 2 here. That means there are 2 enemies in this room. And for that, we have this enemy bag. We're gonna grab random tokens out of that bag and place them according to the arrow which they're facing. There's a club star here, and there is a laser over there. And right next to the enemy token bag, there is the enemy card deck. And we're gonna take the cards, the 2 cards, corresponding to the robots on the field. We're gonna grab those. There's a club star and laser. And we're gonna place our heroes next to that one. And we have essentially now created the turn order. So club star goes first, then laser, then prima. Now you can actually switch up this order, and it is an important and strategic part of the game, but we're gonna come back to that. There are 2 types of units. There are the heroes, which are delvers, and there are the enemies, which are robos. Now robos and delvers, they function pretty much the same, except that robos have everything automated, and heroes have to roll dice to see how much damage they deflect during defense and how much damage they deal during attack. This is a unit's name, this is Clubsar, and there are 4 stats. There are actions, health points, defense, and attack. Now, actions means that this robot, when they take their turn, they can do 2 actions in that turn. Health points means that if they get 3 damage or more damage, they count as slain and they are just out of the game. Defense 2 means that whenever this robot is attacked, it will deflect automatically 2 of that attack's damage. And they have an attack of 4, which means that when they attack, they will deal 4 damage. Now, this robo has a special ability once it deals damage. More about that later. Now the timeline indicates that Calypsar will take its turn first, and Robos follow a simple script, which is that they will attack from where they can, and if they cannot attack from where they stand, they will make a move action. Now Calypsar is a melee character, which means that it has to stand next to a character or diagonal from a character in order to be able to attack. It can't do that from where it stands, so it simply makes a move action and then checks again. Well, it's still not in range, so it's going to make another move action. It's up to the player to decide where that robot will go, but we're gonna place it here. Now it is Laser's turn. Laser is gonna check. Can it attack from where it stands? It does not. It faces the wrong direction. So for its first action, it's going to make a move action. During a move, you can also rotate freely. So that was their first action. And now, because Laser is a range character, they can actually attack Prima. It's going to make an attack, and it has a attack power of 3, which means that Prima is going to get 3 damage if she does not defend herself well. And now we arrive at the integral part of Halls of Teknor, which is dice combat. Now here we have the combat dice. There are white dice and black dice. They have a subtle difference that for now does not come into play yet. So we're just gonna roll 4 of these dice. Let's just take 2 white and 2 black ones. You can pick any combination you like, but we're gonna do these. And we're gonna roll these dice to see how much Prima defends herself. We're just gonna roll and then look up the chart, whatever that means. Now there's a lot of symbols here. We have to score points. So the more points we score, the more damage we subtract. This half circle is half a point, which combines with other half points. So we already deflected 1 damage. This is a whole point. This is a what we call a hit, but it has also a critical hit, which means that you get to re-roll one dice. Now this is half a crit. So we have one hit here, one hit there, and there is a dice that we can re-roll because of the crit. We're gonna re-roll this die, see what happens. And actually, that is our third hit. So we deflected all of the 3 attack damage that Lazar did. Lucky. And now it is Prima's turn. Now, Delvers are a little bit different from robots because as a Delver, you can choose what action you want to do when, and all of your actions are described on action cards. So here's Prima's action. She has a move action and a attack action. Now, move says move your character up to one space in any direction and change facing to any directions, which is what we already did with the robots. But there is a optional part, which is move again. So in one action, you could actually move twice. However, there is this step symbol located at the bottom, which means that if you do the optional part of an action, you have to tap the card and you cannot use the whole action again for as long as it is tapped. And for attack, we have target the unit within your attack's range, then roll equal to your attack's value. I grabbed the Prima card to explain how that works. Now, when we talk about range, there are two types of attacks. There are melee attacks and there are shoot attacks. Now, Prima has this fist, which indicates that she has the melee attack. Now, what is the range of a melee attack? The line of sight directly in front of her. So it's like these three squares, the diagonal ones and the one in front. Then it says, then roll equal to your attack's value, and Prima's attack value has 4. That means that you get to roll 4 dice when attacking. We're gonna take Prima's 2 actions. For our first action, we're gonna make a move. During our move, you can always rotate. We're gonna rotate towards the enemy, and then, as our second action, we're gonna do an attack. Now we know Prima has 4 attack. That means we get to roll 4 dice. Just as with defending, during attacking, the goal is to score as many hits as possible. We're going to take these 4 dice, roll them, and see what happens. There are a lot of symbols we are seeing here. This circle counts as 1 point. That's a hit. This circle is a hit, but it's also a crit, which means it's 1 point, and you get to re-roll a die. These are half hits and half crits, and together they can form one whole. Remember that you cannot combine a hit with a crit. Now these are the Flick and the Flag. They can activate special abilities on your weapons. These are nukes, and those are things that you can use to store up energy for special attacks called Nuke Actions. We rolled a hit, a crit, a half hit, and well, nothing just yet. That means we get to re-roll because of this crit, 1 die. I'm gonna pick this one and see what happens. Right, that's a crit as well. You can now choose to do another reroll. Well, maybe let's reroll this die. And we are now out of rerolls and rolls. This is the total number of hits and points, which is 3. Our target has 2 defense, which means that they do get 1 damage. We're going to take this damage counter over there and just drag it over, put it on the robot. Now it's Bismarck's turn. They have a ranged attack. Now Calypso is definitely within range. So Bismarck's going to roll 3 dice and see what happens. Now this is together 2 half crits is 1 whole crit. You could choose to reroll one of these die. And I'm going to roll this one. That adds up to nothing. Now Bismarck has 1 action left. So what if we really wanted to eliminate this robot this turn? Do we have some kind of special attack? As mentioned before, the attack also has a optional option, which is half crits count as whole during that attack. Now, before you do this optional attack, you have to tap the card before you roll the die. So as our second action, we're going to tap that card. We're going to roll one more time, but this time half crits count as whole. That was not good at all. And that already concludes the first round. Clubster has 1 measly damage and Bosma exhausted their attack, which means that they cannot use their attack again as long as their attack card is tapped. We're going to go straight to the next round. And this is a good moment to introduce timeline creeping. You see, heroes can actually decide before the round starts to crawl, to creep in front of other robots. Is this without risk? No, not really, because when you creep in front of a robot, that robot will have one extra attack power during their attacks. Also, there are robots that have specials that allow them to roll dice. When heroes are creeping, they roll one more die for every hero that creeps. So suppose Laser had a special which rolled dice. If Prima would have gone in front of them and Bosma would have gone in front of them, they rolled two more dice during their attacks and two more dice during their special. We're gonna be a bit daring and put Prima all the way in the front because we really want to hit Klipsar before they can hit us. That does mean that both Klipsar and Lazar will have one more attack power. Buzzma, however, is still gonna go last because when you are up and you have no more robots behind you on the timeline, then you can replenish all your exhausted actions. Prima is in a pretty good position to attack Klipsar because she's attacking from the side. An additional combat rule is that when you attack a unit from the side, you get to roll one extra die. When you attack an enemy from the rear, you get to roll two extra die. Now this goes both ways. So when robots attack delvers from the side, they get one more attack power. And when they attack from the rear, they get two more attack power. We really want to kill this Klipsar. We get to roll 5 extra dice, 4 from attacking and 1 for attacking from the rear. We were going to give it all that we have. So how can we kill this robot? Well, there is an actual extra die, which is the trash die. Now, the trash die is a die with all kinds of benefit. It has stronger sides, it has more crits than average, some even are 1.5 crit on one side, but they do come at a cost because you can also roll really bad. We're gonna try to see what happens when we roll all 4 dice and the trash die. Remember, you can use the trash die whenever you are attacked and wherever you are defending, but you can never re-roll it. We're just gonna see what happens. We rolled 1 point, 2 point, half a crit, and half a hit. Now these don't add up together. We only have 1 hit on our attack. And we have rolled a nasty looking symbol. And that symbol says charge. Charge the first 2 robots on the timeline. It means basically that they attack harder. Now there's also summon, which brings robots back, and there's alarm, which makes robots do specials. So we rolled charge, which says that the first 2 robots on the timeline are charged by 1. Basically, they do now 1 more damage during their attack. But we also rolled these weird little symbols. This is a T looking and this is a U looking thing. These are the Fliks and the Flaks. And these can combine to activate your weapons in special abilities. Now there are 2 types of gear. There is armor and there's weapons. So armor can go off during being attacked and weapons can go off when you attack. We rolled a flick, a flak, and a flak, and this Prima's power fix, her weapon, says that you can rotate the target whenever that happens. But we do get to rotate it 90%. This really sets up our second attack because we are now attacking from the rear. This means that we can roll 2 extra dice, so 4 for a normal attack and 2 for the attack bonus. We're gonna roll these dice. Now we roll 1 hit, 2 hit, and 2 dice that really don't add up much to each other. But we do have that 1 reroll here. I think we should reroll this one. See what happens. Okay, so there we have another crit. So we now already have 3. We can re-roll one of these 2 dice. I know that the half crit appears on one side of a die, and the half hit appears on 2 sides of the die. So I'm going to re-roll this one. Hope for the best. There we go. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. That is enough to kill the robot. We're going to take its card out of the timeline, put it back in the robot deck, and we're going to take its chit and put it back in the bag. But now it is Lazar's turn. So they're going to make a move for their first action. They move here, and for their second action, they are going to do an attack. They normally have attack power 3, but they are attacking from the rear, and they have a charge of 1, which means that they would now do 5 damage if we do not defend well. Prima has 4 defense, so she gets to roll 4 dice. We're just gonna hope for the best, see if we can knock something off. We have a crit and a hit, so we already knocked 2 of those 5 damage down, so we would get 3 damage. But we also have this crit. That means we can reroll. I think it's smart to reroll this one. Hope that we have an additional half hit. No, we don't. So we actually get 3 damage. Quite a lot. But now it is Bosma's turn, and Bosma is last in the timeline. Remember, when you start your turn, always check if there are any other robots behind you. If not, you can refresh your exhausted actions and start using them right away. Let's jump ahead in time a bit. Laser now has 3 damage, and Prima just did a smashing attack, which will do more than enough damage is needed to kill this robot. Doing more than enough damage is called overkill. And when you overkill a robot, you get to draw a loot card. You put away the card and the chit away as normal. However, you also get to draw one of these loot coins from this bag over here. Now a loot coin is double-sided. On one side, it has a chance to heal you for 1. So whoever draws this loot coin, they heal as much as this value shows. And then you can flip it on the other side, and there you can see 1 tox. Now these loot coins contain either toxies or bolts, which you can use to upgrade your hero's gear or level up. You can just put those away. As soon as you put them away, they are shared among the characters, and now you can continue. So you cleared this room. There are no more foes present. First thing you do is you roll for treasure. You search this room by rolling this dice, this D12. So suppose we roll the 1, we're just going to get treasure 1, and we're going to flip that. Usually, these treasure cards are gears or key items or trinkets that you can use in the game. You can put that aside for later. And now to see whether you want to continue your search or go back to camp. If you go back to camp, your character heals and stuff, but you could also decide to delve deeper in the dungeon. Now below there is this word that says to the Hall of Crossroads, page 3 and 4. If you decide to go there, you go to that page, which in this case is page 3. So we're now in this Hall of Crossroads. This is a new hall, and it's gonna be full with robots and enemies and stuff. So why won't we just go back to camp between every hall? Why do 2 at the same time or more? Well, there is an incentive, and that is that after you clear the hall, you get to roll 1 extra treasure roll for each room that you cleared before. So this time we cleared 2 halls. At the end of this one, we're gonna roll 2 dice. And for the next hall, we're gonna roll 3 dice, and that way you can get a lot of treasure. However, if you roll the number from a card that you already have, then that roll is void. Now there is a little help we give players to get them along the way if they want to do consecutive holes in one delve. And that is, if you clear the first hole and you go into the next one, you roll or draw 1 loot coin. You can reward the healing to one of the delvers and then put it in your shared inventory. For every hole you go into after that one, you even draw 2 loot coins. Let's just go back to camp first. So we're gonna talk about what you can do at the camp shop. And it is the last page of the book. You don't have to go there, but it has some handy rules for you to help you get along and remember what you're supposed to do here. Boldly speaking, at the camp shop, you heal your character completely, you can inspect gear, and you can level up your characters. So the first thing we have to do when we get back to the camp is calculate how much toxies and bolts you got and make a note, and then put those bolts and toxies back in the box. Now we have 3 toxies and 4 bolts. I'm going to put those back in the loot bag. So I wrote this down on this little notepad right here, and this is where your money is saved. This is your bank account. If you have loot coins during your delve and you die during that delve, you lose those loot coins. But once it's on here, it is absolutely safe. You can spend it whenever you want. First, let's level up our character. Now we have our level 0 characters, the one that we started with. And at the top right, and both cards, you see this level 0 followed by mutate 1 tox. That means that for every character, it costs 1 tox to level up their character. We're going to level up Prima and subtract that much tox from our savings. We're going to make a note of that later, update that later on. We're just going to go to level 1. And from now on, you can throw this card in the discard pile, never use it again. From now on, this is the card that we use. In what way is it leveled up? Well, it has the same stats, but it does have an extra ability called the melee kill boost. It says if you slay a robo, you may rotate and do a free melee once per turn. Now, suppose we even leveled up to level 2. So this is now the card that we're going to use from now on. It has an interesting text. It says when you mutate to this, mutating is basically leveling, gain 1 nuke action. Read quest book passage 2, page 13. Now that passage is mostly lore stuff, so we're gonna skip that, but we are gonna gain 1 nuke action. And when you gain 1 nuke action, you go to this nuke deck, you shuffle the deck, and you take 2 cards. And you choose one of those cards. These are nuke actions. They're a little bit more powerful than regular actions, but they also come at a price. We're just gonna pick a pretty one. We're going to give that one to Prima, put it next to her other actions, and we're going to do the same for Buzma and skip ahead. Now let's look at upgrading gear. So suppose we, on our quest, found this treasure card, which is treasure 11, it's called the pink plastic knife. We're going to take a look at that. And at the bottom right, there are a bunch of symbols under the word upgrade. The first one looks like 3 bolts. That means they will take 3 bolts to upgrade this thing. And then there is a clock with a 2 next to it. So in the lore, the shopkeeper is going to inspect that gear and try to upgrade it, figure it out while you are out in the dungeon. And it's going to take a while. So when a item says this 2 clock things, that means you have to clear 2 holes in order to upgrade it. We're going to use this counter for that, and we're going to place it on top of the thing. Now when you clear a hole, you can flip that counter, and when you clear another hole, you can remove it, and now you have no more time counters on it. If you now return to camp, you can look for the upgraded version of this treasure item. Now this is the pink plastic knife. There's this whole pile of cards that are upgrades for other cards. Now this is the gear upgrade for pink plastic knife, conveniently placed on top. We're just gonna grab that one, and now this one actually replaces that one. So the old version is away, and this new version is just free for you to use. So we leveled up our characters and we upgraded our gear, and you can do that in any order when you go to the campsite. But it's important to remember that you can only equip one weapon and only one. You can just remove the old one and pick that one. So this current one, the old one, you don't toss those away. They just go into an eternal bag of holding. But during your dungeon run, you can only equip one. Now you can change that up during between hauls, but you cannot switch weapons mid combat. So we did our leveling up and our upgrading, and now it's time to go back in the dungeon. Now, a word that I dropped a few times is delve and clearing a hole. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, a delve is a session in the dungeon. So your delve takes as long as you are in there. So if you clear 3 holes, you are on a delve. And if you go back to camp, your delve is over. So what does it mean when I say clear a hole? Well, if you enter a hole and you destroy all the enemies and then you did a treasure roll, that counts as clearing a hall. But if it's the first time you were in that hall, you also explored it. And you can mark explored holes in this little map. I'm going to draw this pen tool, but I'm just going to make a mark here, and that's the entry hole. And I'm going to make this mark. That means it is explored. So if you go back to camp, you level up your stuff, blah, 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 you can decide to go back to any of the holes that you have explored. And that hole will be empty, and you can start from there, pick another door, and then that door will be filled with monsters. For example, during our last delve, we cleared this opener plus. So we killed these 2 robots, then we did the treasure roll, then we can mark it as explored. So now when we go back here, this room will not contain enemies right away. But, however, if we go to the Hall of Crossroads on page 3 to 4, that hall will have enemies. So whatever hall you land on, if it's explored, it will not contain enemies, but all the other halls will. Now we start at the opener plus, and from here we can go into 2 directions. We can go back to camp right away. We're not going to do that, but we can also go deeper into Hall of the Crossroads. Now, because this room is explored, but we didn't clear it, there's no monsters in here, we're not going to get a loot coin from the bag, as soon as we go to the next hall. So we're just gonna go there, place our characters, and there's something that maybe sticks out already, and that is these two weird little tiles with weird symbols. Now those are portal tiles, and if you step on a portal tile, you end up in a random portal with an opposite symbol. How do you determine that? Well, suppose Prima walks here, she makes a movement into this portal action. We're gonna roll a die, and whenever we roll, we're gonna end up in a portal with that number. So this is portal 12. And because we rolled a 12, we end up here. So after a unit does a teleport, they can still rotate to any direction they desire. I went ahead and filled the board and the timeline with enemies because I want to go through a little bit of a combat cycle so I can explain rolling, setting aside rolls with nuke sides up, and later using them to activate nuke actions. Now suppose Prima hit this enemy from the side and she rolled 5 dice. Now she's gonna do a bunch of damage, but that's not important here. What I'm gonna focus on now is that we also roll 3 dice with this nuke symbol. And that means that after you calculated all the damage and stuff and the damage is dealt, you can choose to set either all or none of the nuke sides apart. And now if you put those apart, you put them in the nuke zone. Let's just make this the nuke zone. And you cannot use those 3 dice during combat whenever you attack or get attacked. You cannot use those again for as long as they are in the nuke zone. You can look at this as saving up for later because we have these new actions that we unlocked with leveling up. And these nuke actions, they actually require, on top of the normal activation of tapping, also required these 4 symbols. And that means that if you want to do this action, you also have to pay 4 nukes. And how do you pay with 4 nukes? You simply move the nuke dice equal to the number that's displayed on here back to your pool. Just remember that you cannot use dice for combat, for blocking or attacking, that you put in the nuke zone. Even if you have like the defense 4 and you're attacked and you only have 3 dice, you can only roll 3 dice. Also, you can never put the danger or the trash die to the nuke zone. And then there are the robot specials. Now, not every, but many robots, they have a special, which is a ability that is displayed on the usually on the text bar here. And a special is something that they do at the start of their turn, and it is separated from their actions. So if a robot has 2 actions and they have a special, they will first do that special and then they will do those 2 actions. Now, most of these robots, they have a roll 3 on crit thing, which means that if you play, you will roll, if they start their turn, you will roll 3 dice, and if you hit a crit, then their ability will activate. Something funny is that when you set aside supposedly 5 nuke dice, and this thing tells you to roll 3, you also only have to roll as many nuke dice as you have available in your pool. That settles pretty much all of the rules of the game. If you have any questions, you can always ask me on any of the socials, but also all the rules are located in this little rule book down here, and I even made a reference sheet for, looking up quick things. With that out of the way, I hope you have a good time, and I will see you in the halls of Teknor.